Welcome one, welcome all to PFF's NFL Show's preview of Week 9 in the NFL. I'm Trevor Sikkema, that is Dalton Wasserman. Here to run down every single game that we have in Week 9. Week 9, Dalton, we're halfway through the season. Wild. It feels like it's just going by in the blink of an eye. It really does. It feels like we're still kind of figuring out some teams, but this is the point where I think a lot of these teams start to reveal actually who they are. And it matters, certainly, when you're peaking in the second half of the season, when you're getting into the playoffs, but this is really where things start to get fun, in my opinion, where we have a lot of teams where you go, okay, you should win this game by a lot. Do they? You have a lot of teams where you go, all right, you're probably not going to compete very well in this game. Do they surprise you a little bit? There's a couple of matchups that we're going to talk about this week that have to do with just that. But how you doing, my friend?
We're good. We're good. During our little intro there, I was kind of stretching out and I got a cramp in my back, so I'm kind of working through that. We might be questionable for the rest of the show, but otherwise pretty good. Like you mentioned, Trevor, maybe we get a few more close games this week after just one score game last week. But we'll see. That's the thing in the NFL is the stories change all the time. But you're right. This is the time of year when the really good teams start to separate because they're the more consistent teams that can stack good weeks back to back.
You're too young to be playing through back spasms. We can't have that. You got to figure that out. I don't know if it's you got to get like a good stretching routine or you got to warm up a little bit better, but you can't be playing through a back injury here. Unless you think you're Matthew Stafford.
The 30s are tough, man. The 30s.
Do you think you're Matthew Stafford?
Do I think I'm Matthew Stafford?
Yeah.
No, that would be awfully arrogant of me.
They don't call you the Matthew Stafford of co-hosts on the PFF NFL show?
I mean,
nobody said that yet?
I don't have many co-hosts, and you're one of only two of them that I have. So if you want to start the trend, we can try to get Max on board. It's just, it takes more than one. It takes the majority to vote on these things, and I'm sure the producers absolutely love whatever nickname you give me for sure.
Okay, I'm going to give you that because Matthew Stafford's playing at elite level this season, which means that through the rest of this season, you're absolutely going to be an elite co-host.
Wow. All right. We're living, playing through injury and everything. We're good. Or I just went and maybe I just got to go in whatever one of those chambers that he was in the preseason. Come back out, just a whole new Matthew Stafford.
Oh, yeah, right. Dude, that's honestly, we're going to get to the first game in a second. That's honestly when I thought it was over. When they pulled up with like the mobile chamber for him to go sit in instead of practice, that's genuinely when I thought it was over for Matthew Stafford. I'm very glad that it's not. I'm very glad that we actually get to see the Los Angeles Rams offense at its full potential, especially with Puka Nacua getting more healthy and getting back. But hey, speaking of injuries, playing through some pain, that's what we got on Thursday Night Football here, especially with Lamar Jackson coming back. We think, right? It's not Thursday yet. Nothing's happened yet, but we assume that Lamar Jackson is going to be playing in this game here for the Baltimore Ravens, who are coming off of a win. They're taking on the Miami Dolphins in Miami. And Miami's had some ups and downs, but this past week was really good for them against the Atlanta Falcons. So it's two teams that have struggled and disappointed against their own expectations throughout the first half of the season, no doubt about it. But two teams coming off of wins. How do we feel about this one? You want to start talking about Miami, or do you want to talk about the Ravens side of things?
I'm really intrigued with the Ravens defense, and they've been playing a bit better the last couple of weeks. And ever since they traded for Alohi Gilman, they've kind of messed around like they did last year with the alignment of their safeties. Now, last year when they went on a good defensive run in the second half of the year, they basically made Kyle Hamilton the single high free safety, the backbone of the secondary, and everything else was falling in line around that. This time around, to make some adjustments, trading for Gilman, moving the rookie Malachi Starks into more of a free safety type role, you've got Kyle Hamilton down operating in the slot again as the nickel, as that kind of third linebacker that mixes in there with Roquan Smith and Teddy Buchanan and Trenton Simpson, right? When you look at the last couple of games, and this is 2 games since the Alohi Gilman trade, okay, he has not played a single snap aligned as a free safety. He has been in the slot. He's been as that extra linebacker, kind of that base third linebacker. He's lined up off the edge a little bit when they want him to blitz. They've moved Kyle Hamilton into more of a down in the box role again, and he's so used to it, right? That's what makes him arguably the best safety in football, is he can do anything, and he's got that flexibility. The first 5 games of the year, a little more 50-50 when it came to being free or in the box, but what they're doing right now, last year the issue was coverage, so we said, all right, we'll put Kyle back there free, and we'll fix the coverage, we'll figure out the zone defenses here. This year, the issue is the run defense. They've been one of the worst run defense teams in the league, and they move Hamilton up in the box because aside from Roquan Smith, Smith. They're kind of struggling on that second level. So I really think this is intriguing, knowing on a week-to-week basis where Kyle Hamilton is going to be lined up, and really, look, centering your defense around your best players. They've got a rookie playing at linebacker and Teddy Buchanan. Needs some help there on the second level. Hamilton's been great, as he always is, but this time it's from a more of a box alignment, a strong safety, or a nickel alignment than it was last year, the second half of the year, when he was basically their free safety and everything else worked around him.
Yeah, specifically, I was looking at the Ravens defense because Lamar changes everything for the offense, in my opinion. If Lamar is even 80-90% healthy, whatever that looks like for him, I think the Ravens offense looks a whole of a hell lot better than it has over the last couple of weeks with him not there. And that's no slight against Snoop Huntley, who obviously the Ravens won the game last week and they scored 30 points while doing it. So the offense was operating well enough. It only gets better when you put the multi-time MVP in Lamar Jackson back there at quarterback. So for me, I just think that it's going to be a lot closer to the version of the Ravens offense that we believed it was going to be throughout the entirety of the season, really what we saw at the beginning of the season, although I understand that they didn't beat the Buffalo Bills at the beginning of the year. But that first game, man, it looked like they were firing on all cylinders, and it looked like the Ravens were going to be that Super Bowl contending team that we all believed they had the potential to be. But then you mentioned the defense, specifically the run defense, was pretty bad for them to start the season. However, to compound onto sort of what you said about how they've been turning around a little bit, 2 out of the last 3 weeks that they have played, they have had the lowest, I should say, team percentage of negatively graded run defense plays. So all of that is a lot of words to basically just say they've been better against the run over the last couple of weeks. And against Miami specifically, we know that this is a team that they kind of have to stay balanced, especially without Tyreek Hill in this lineup, if they want to not just move the ball down the field and score points, but more importantly, control the football, not turn it over. It's always when they become very one-dimensional that teams then really start to key on exactly what this team wants to do, what Tua Tagovailoa wants to do, and if they're able to fool him at all post-snap, we've seen that Tua can give you the football. So when it comes to defending the Miami Dolphins, it's mainly the run defense that I'm looking at here. And if the Ravens continue to play really well when it comes to those run defense plays, whether it's Kyle Hamilton being at the second level, the defensive line playing a little bit better, whatever it looks like, if they're able to neutralize Devon Achane, then I feel like the Ravens have a good chance to win this football game. So I do have the Ravens winning. I think that I have more faith in sort of where this team is going and how they've been over the last couple of weeks, even with both of these teams coming off of a win. I'm going to say Ravens 27, Dolphins 17 is my final score here in this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think even if Tyler Huntley is the quarterback in this game, they can find a way to win it because Huntley is more dynamic than Cooper Rush, and it seemed like just a better fit in this offense this past week with him. If Lamar is back, then it's just a matter of how long it takes him to find that rhythm. I think Devon Achane still could have some success because he's really good out in space, but I'm with you. I've got the Ravens 28-21. I think their offense is starting to get going, and I don't think that Miami run defense last week doesn't prove enough for me in run defense because of kind of the disrespect they had for the Falcons offense and Kirk Cousins. If Miami's run defense plays to that level in this game, then they've got a real shot to win it, but I'm going with the bigger sample of what we have in their earlier struggles. I think Derrick Henry could be in for a big day.
So let's talk about the Falcons and the Patriots. I know you are going to specifically talk about what the Falcons are on their side of the ball when it comes to running. I'm also going to do the same thing with the New England Patriots. I think the rushing theme that we've established here at the beginning of this show, that's going to continue with this matchup. So talk to me about the Atlanta Falcons and their offense going up against the Patriots here.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's looking like Michael Penix is tracking to be back in, so you do have that more vertical threat in the passing game, which in theory opens up the front seven for Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier to get the job done on the ground. But this Patriots run defense the last couple weeks, albeit against not great teams when you talk about the Saints and the Titans and the Browns, not great running teams there, but they've been dominant up front the last 3 weeks in run defense. They're first in the league in run defense grade. They're first in yards per carry allowed. Over their last 3 weeks, they've allowed -6 yards before contact per carry. Actually, I should say total, and they're first in it per carry allowed. Explosive run rate, first best in that, lowest in the NFL, fifth in yards per carry allowed total. You look at especially Robert Spillane at that linebacker level, and he's going to be big. When you talk about Bijan Robinson getting on the second level and making people miss, he leads the league in missed tackles forced, but Spillane has the third best run defense grade grade of any linebacker in the league. I thought he was arguably the best player on the field last week. So I just think this Patriots front seven, and we thought this could happen, right? When you have Christian Barmore and Milton Williams in the middle of it, they're very disruptive. Off the edge, a guy like Caleb Von Chason, who's been really good. Harold Landry's a really good run defender, but Spillane is leading that charge in the middle of it. I think he's going to be a very important piece of this game. And now it's a step up, right? We talked about the last three Patriots opponents. Their offenses have been kind of dysfunctional. When you look at this Atlanta team, if they prove that their run defense is at this level against this team, this offensive line, Chris Lindstrom and those guys, and Bijan Robinson, then you talk about having a major advantage on defense and making the Falcons one-dimensional.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot. Whenever the Falcons offense, it feels like, has been too predictable and just has not utilized Bijan Robinson, excuse me, even as a threat, right? It's sometimes less about his overall output and just the fact that, okay, this team is utilizing play action less than any team in the NFL. And that's hard to believe with a player that they all talk about in Atlanta like they believe he's the best offensive player, one of the best offensive playmakers in the league. You got to utilize that at all times. If you really believe that he is this incredible offensive weapon, then play action's got to be a big part of your game. So let alone the production from Bijan Robinson, I just think making him more of a focal point of what you were trying to do and how you were trying to deceive the defense is going to be really important for the Falcons to being the best versions of themselves that they could be on that side of the ball. Now, again, like you mentioned, like it's a bad week to sort of judge that, because even if the Falcons do that a little bit better this week, I think the Patriots are playing really well on both sides of the ball. Specifically, I'll focus on their offense since you kind of talked about the defensive side of that chess match. TreVeyon Henderson last week, their rookie running back from Ohio State, 10 carries, 75 rushing yards, had 5 missed tackles forced total in that game. He had a fumble, and it was a lost fumble, but if you take away the fumble, his rushing grade goes up from, I believe it was right around like a 61 or a 62, all the way up to a 72.8, and that's something that you really want to continue to see from TreVeyon Henderson, who is the more explosive and dynamic back out of the duo of him and Ramondre Stevenson. And I think getting both of them involved in the offense consistently will be important for the Patriots as they, march toward potentially winning this division, potentially, going into the playoffs and trying to be an upset team. Not a lot of people pick to make a deep playoff run or anything like that, but clearly the best version of their offense is not just when the ball is in Drake May's hands, but you look at, okay, we've seen what it looks like and the ceiling of the offense from Drake May. How do we increase the efficiency elsewhere around him? And I really do believe that's in the run game. And efficiency is, I guess, one word that I obviously would use, but being dynamic is another one. And I think that Henderson gives you that explosive ability. So him being more involved in this offense, hang on to the football, TreVeyon. We want to continue to see you in this offense. You got to hang on to the football. Make sure that you're not fumbling. Make sure you're not getting in the doghouse, because it felt like there was a little bit there. I can't remember which week it was, early parts of the season, when they were starting to lean a little bit more to TreVeyon Henderson, and then he just kind of got in the doghouse just because I think he had an earlier fumble earlier in this season, and then bad in pass protection as well, which is a reason why he wasn't getting on the field on those late downs and passing situations. So the more he is on the field in a reliable fashion, I just think that only raises the ceiling for this Patriots offense. Ultimately, I don't think that the Falcons defense has enough to slow them down. I'm going to say Patriots 24, Falcons 17. What do you got?
I have the Patriots as well. I have it 27-20, and I think a big factor, and you mentioned the run game for the Patriots, is that Divine Diablo, obviously on IR, out with the fractured forearm. That is a big loss for this Falcons defense. You look at the way that Miami was able to control possession against them. You could feel the loss of Diablo at that linebacker level. I think New England's offense is just rolling so well right now. The way that Drake May is playing, they're going to be very hard to stop. He's going to have to be cognizant of Jeff Ulbrich and the blitz packages that are getting thrown at him and the variety of pass rushers in this Falcons defense. But, whether it's Michael Penix or Kirk Cousins coming back, this Falcons offense has been inconsistent. I would say this season, if they can't run the football, if New England's run defense does show up, I don't know that there's a whole lot of avenues for the Falcons to win this ball game, especially if Drake London's not 100% still. So I do like New England at home and them getting to 7-2.
The Vikings traveling to Detroit to take on the Lions. We're getting J.J. McCarthy in this game, right? I mean, we're not getting Carson Wentz, but we're getting J.J. McCarthy, right? I don't know. Have you officially seen that they're going with McCarthy? I know it was like close the last couple of weeks with him getting a little bit better, but with Carson Wentz now, banged up with a bunch of different injuries, they've got to be going to McCarthy here, right?
I believe so. I mean, that's obviously the hope. Otherwise, you're probably looking at the rookie out of Minnesota, Max Brosmer. Right.
I like Max Brosmer.
So I do like him
honestly.
too. I think he can function. I think there's a pretty solid like Jimmy Garoppolo type of feel there with Brosmer where he can function in this offense. But no, I mean, the hope is that they have McCarthy back there as the guy who's supposed to be the franchise quarterback.
Well, and I know that that's the hope because you want him out there because you want to see him play and you want to see him play well. But my goodness, when it came to a pressure to sack ratio for J.J. McCarthy when he was out there at the beginning of the season, it was over 40%. When he's getting pressured, he is taking a sack almost over 40% of the times that was happening before he got out of the lineup due to injury. And so it's not a great week to put that pressure to sack ratio to the test, honestly, going up against Detroit, and obviously this one in Detroit, so getting a little bit of a home field advantage there for the Lions. You want to talk about the Viking side of it, or you want to talk about the Lions?
I'll stay right on that side with McCarthy and the pressure that could be coming at him. And it's I had this written down anyway, but it's worth noting that Aiden Hutchinson just got a new contract, Trevor, about 2 hours ago. 4 years and $180 million. Certainly has earned it so far throughout his career, and I wouldn't expect the production to change, and it hasn't this year coming off the injury. You look at Hutchinson with a 92.6 pass rush grade, tied for second best in the league, only behind Micah Parsons. Al-Qadim Muhammad, I've talked about a lot this year, 76.4 pass rush grade. These two guys have combined for 75 pressures this year, which is just ridiculous. And then you look at the Vikings' offensive tackles are a big question mark. If they are healthy, it's one of the better pairs of tackles in the league with Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill. But are they going to be healthy? Darrisaw only played 8 snaps in their last game before coming out with injury again. Is it going to be these two? Is it going to be Justin School? Is it going to be Walter Rouse? Is it going to be both of those guys? I think the Lions feel like they have an advantage here with Hutchinson, of course, and then Muhammad on the other side with if you've got compromised starting tackles for Minnesota or if there's backups at either or both spots. So it's not only McCarthy holding on to the football and needing to get rid of it faster before he takes these sacks, but they're coming quick this week. And Ali McNeil's back in on the inside. He came back in their last game as well. So there's a real pass rush threat here, obviously, with the Detroit Lions. And you're looking at a Vikings offensive line situation that they've been dealing with injuries throughout the year.
Yeah, obviously Vegas very much favors the Detroit Lions in this one, 8.5-point favorites. And it's hard to have too much of an argument here for the Vikings given how poorly J.J. McCarthy played before he went out, because this is sort of one of these games where if you want to have, if you want to be the eternal optimist and say, no, McCarthy's coming back, he's going to play way better immediately than what he did before, okay, then I think that this game could certainly be a little bit closer. But if he's even, coming up from whatever that floor was where he was playing when it came to him playing under pressure, I still think this is going to be a really tough game for them. So on the other side of things, for the Lions offense, they're a machine right now. They're back to looking like the Lions that we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years, honestly, where they just sort of look unstoppable every single week. And the only weeks where they have lost and when the offense has stalled out a little bit has been when they don't run the football well. And it's not always a correlation of just saying like, hey, if you don't run for this many yards, you're going to lose the football game. But the 2 games where they lost this season, they had their lowest rushing output, and both of those games, they rushed for under 100 total yards as a team. Every other game this season, and in their wins, they are always rushing for more than 100 yards as a team. And it's not just the yards themselves, but it's also just keeping drives going. It's getting those explosive plays because Jahmyr Gibbs is such an explosive player out of the backfield. It means that the game script is going the way that they want it to go. So the run game, it's less about just saying, okay, we've got to hand the ball off a certain amount of times. That's not what we're saying. What we're really saying is that when they have the ability to stay very balanced on offense, and when the game script gives them the ability to continue to keep the run game into it, that is when they have the most potency on offense. That is when they are able to keep the defense on their heels, march down the field, get in scoring range, and specifically score those touchdowns. For the Vikings, I will say this. Since week 4, they're 22nd in team run defense grade, so not great, but they're 12th in EPA per rush allowed, so they're better there situationally. And on the defensive line specifically, I think they're playing better. They have the 6th best run defense grade for just their defensive linemen since week 4. So over the last handful of weeks, they have been better at defending the run. I don't think it's going to be enough in this game. I'm still going with the Lions 27. And just for a funky score, I'm going Vikings 12 because I've got to see it with JJ McCarthy at this point. I have to see it because outside of the second half of that Chicago Bears game in week 1, it has not been there for him. And instead of being a reason why they win and a reason why they're elevating the offense, he has been a reason why they do not perform well. And it's not exactly a great week to be coming back from injury, going into Detroit and facing the Detroit Lions. So I just think they're going to be overmatched in this one. I think the Lions win it.
I'm with you. I have the Lions 30-14. I think the offense is going to be rolling in the dome. This game is going to come down to which quarterback can perform better under pressure or just be under pressure less often. It's good that you bring up the Lions run game so the Lions can stay in good down and distance situations and keep Brian Flores out of all those blitz packages because Jared Goff has the lowest PFF grade of any quarterback under pressure this season at just a 30.5. So, I mean, you want to keep him in clean pockets, in good situations where you can keep the play action game going. But, yeah, I think Hutchinson and this defensive line, they're really going to disturb McCarthy in the pocket. The Vikings have a compromised offensive line, which has really been hurting them this year, and it's been hurting them running the football too. I think this is a pretty solid Lions win here.
Okay, we've got the Broncos and the Texans, which is a very exciting 1 p.m. or early slate game, I should say, because there's some people that aren't watching on the East Coast. Early slate game, Broncos and Texans. And I think this is going to be a fun one. The chess match between Sean Payton and DeMeco Ryans, that's going to be a lot of fun. So for this game, we had to get our guy Terron Armstead back with us here to break down the trenches part of this one and the Broncos offensive line, specifically going up against Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. Let's listen to what he had to say. Switching it up a little bit with our guy, Terron Armstead here, as we are previewing the Denver Broncos and the Houston Texans. Look, I think that the headlines of this one, Terron, are, of course, Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson, how great of pass rushers those guys are, above 24.0 pass rush win percentage this season for both of those guys, elite pass rush grades. We know what they can do getting after the passer. But I actually think the matchup that is the most intriguing is how this Broncos offensive line, specifically their offensive tackles, is going to be a part of what is one of the better run blocking units in the NFL. And coming off of the heels of what was the perfectly blocked play, that RJ Harvey touchdown that we had last week, I sort of wanted to pick your brain about the run blocking side of things. So when you look at the Denver Broncos, and obviously you played offensive tackle in the NFL, I want to ask you about what the differences are between the downhill run game and then more of that outside mid-zone run game, what you kind of need for both of those. And let's start with the power run game. What makes a great power run game? Some techniques, some talents that you have to be able to execute that at an NFL level.
Yeah, for sure, Trevor. I would say for all teams, at first you establish an identity. So you got teams that is a power team, a downhill team, power duo. You have teams that's outside zone, is more stretch. The points of attack, like you find your consistent day one install. Mm-hmm. This is what our running game will be built off of. So you got to have a certain personnel for that. And in Denver, Quinn Miners may be him and Quinn Nelson may be the two most power producing O-linemen in the NFL. So for them, they run a lot of power. They run a lot of duo. But the key to the run game, Trevor, and this is kind of like, it's not a secret, but it's unknown to most, is that you have your identity and what you hang your hat on. But in order for that to work, you have to have your changeup. Mm-hmm. So the way the Denver Broncos can go, really just line up and go downhill, get 4 yards. But then they surprise you with an outside run, with a hit and pull, and they get RJ Harvey out in space. And they get these guys who's been double teaming in the D lineman, they're up to the second level, third level. So mixing in those change-ups and then also play action. So if you can have a play action off that power game and duo game, and you can have a change-up to where you can quickly get outside the defense because everybody's loading the box, that's what makes your bread and butter works. Those small outliers.
So for these offensive tackles that we have for the Broncos, Mike McGlinchey and Garrett Bowles, these are guys that have the ability to be pretty big difference makers in the run game. But you talked about the power run game that Denver has been executing throughout the season, and that's really the identity that they've leaned on. from your side of things as an offensive tackle, when you think about things like that, and okay, Denver's more of a downhill run team, but they need to have that change up, need to be able to stretch it and have those pin and pulls, get to the sideline a little bit. For you as an offensive tackle, what went into sort of that sort of run scheme of being more of that down? Because a lot of times when we think of downhill and power run games, we think of those duo double teams that happen a lot in the middle. We focus a lot more on like the center and the guard. But from the offensive tackle's perspective, what do these two guys do to really complement a powerful interior offensive line that Denver has?
Yeah, so for the two tackles for the Broncos, Garrett Bowles, Mike McGlinchey, the way that these guys pass protect is they're one of the tops in the league, and they have been consistently for their career. But you're going against two guys in Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson that are elite pass rushers. So they will be favored in the pass rush against any tandem, any tackle tandem. So as an offensive tackle, when I know I'm going against an elite rusher, I want to beat him up in the run game. I want to take every opportunity we have to, when we hand the ball off, I want to go at him. It's all body blows. That's what we call it. It's straight body blows, rib shots to the gut punch, all those. So for these two guys, for the Broncos, they have to be able to impose their will in the run game. And if you can do that, if you can consistently move these guys off the line of scrimmage, you don't have to get into many pass opportunities. You don't have to get into many obvious pass situations. You can continue to have those body blows and run the ball downhill. Denver is doing a fantastic job of that.
Anything that you can do to just create a little bit of hesitation with these top tier pass rushers, it's something that you got to do. Last thing for you, because I saw you tweet about this in relation to, I think it was that RJ Harvey touchdown where you played for Sean Payton, who is obviously the head coach of the Denver Broncos now. And you tweeted out how when you were playing for Sean Payton, Sean would have like 2 or 3 plays every single week that he said was like 1,000% this is going to be a touchdown. And you said that he would tell you in the week of practice leading up to the game, he'd go, this is when we're going to call it. This is what the defense is going to be in. This is how we're going to score. And you said that when that happened on game day, you guys would just laugh, maybe even before the ball was snapped, because it's exactly what he said it was going to be. Just talk to me a little bit more about that. I'd love to hear about just playing for Sean Payton and obviously it meaning a lot for this matchup here that we're previewing.
Yeah, man, the guy, his offensive foresight, his feel for the game and understanding of the game and how defenses have to present certain looks in order to try to stop what we're presenting on offense is second to none. Every week, Trevor, I lie to you not, every single week, no matter the defense, no matter where we were playing, he had at least 2-3 plays that he's going to show you. And he will stand on it. I'm willing to go to bat on this 1,000%. This is a touchdown on Sunday. And when it happens, man, it's a seam route to Jimmy Graham or a back pylon throw to Mike Thomas or just something, and you just laugh. But for Sean, the way that he creates the matchups through personnel, emotions, he knows exactly what the defense have to run. So if he has Jimmy Graham spread all the way out to the left and the trips on the right, he knows you guys have to run a form of cover 2. You have to, or else, you know what I mean, you have no chance.
Right.
So his offensive foresight was insane. And some weeks he would have 8 plays, 10 plays as a touchdown, and that's when we had those big offensive explosions.
Man, I think in this matchup there's so many just little mini chess games that are going to be going on between the Broncos and the Texans. Sean Payton versus DeMeco Ryans.
Yeah,
that's going to be the big time chess matchup, right? That's the queen versus the queen on the chessboard of how these guys are going to orchestrate the defensive side of the ball and the offensive side of the ball. Terron, we appreciate it as always, my friend. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you.
We got him. Okay. Trevor, you're muted, I think. Maybe.
Oh,
got
sorry.
The sound going. There you go.
Sorry. Now we're good. We're good.
Probably
we're good.
cut
we're
it
good.
during the cut there.
I love hearing from Terron. I love getting to sort of pick his brain and have his experience there. I was chit-chatting with him a little bit afterwards. I should have asked him this question when we were still rolling, and I was like, is there like a specific example? And he talked about, he thinks it was in 2018, 2019, that year that the San Francisco 49ers were Super Bowl contenders. I think when they went to the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, they had a fantastic defense. Defense was playing so well that year. And he's like, we went in, and I think he's like, we put 40 plus on him. And like that was one of those games where Sean, for whatever reason, he knew exactly what he was looking at, and it was a game that nobody saw coming as a high scoring affair. And he's like, I actually think we lost that game, but we scored a lot of points on it, and that was one that he remembered. So I love getting to talk to him about that. But this specific matchup, the Broncos, the Texans. What do you want to talk about here first?
I'm going to mention the Texans' pass protection in a second. One thing I want to throw out there on your side of things here with the Broncos offense, I loved what Terron talked about with having those change-ups, having a lot of variety in your run schemes, and this was something I was actually looking at this week for the Indianapolis Colts, but the Broncos and Colts are 2 of 4 teams in the NFL that do not run any single run concept 25% of the time. They have this variety of run scheme in there, so not only do they have talented offensive linemen, talented backs, but the variety of schemes that they have really helps their run game out as well. I just love that Terron threw that in there because so many teams you go, okay, you got certain teams that run outside zones 60% of the time, right? And you know what's coming during the week. You just have to be able to stop it. There is an element with Sean Payton's offense there that you don't know what you have to stop any given week because he's just responding and reading what your defense is doing on a weekly basis. I'll go to the Texans offensive side here real quick. Their pass protection has come on the last 3 weeks, and it's been a big reason for greater offensive success. If you look at the Texans pass blocking the last 3 weeks, 75.6 pass blocking grade, and they're allowing the lowest pressure rate and the lowest knockdown rate up front of any team in the league over the last 3 weeks. And that last point there is the biggest part, a 72.3 pass blocking grade against the blitz. That's one of the better marks in the league over the last few weeks, and that's really a big deal. Earlier in the season, they could stop a standard 4-man rush and they could function against it, but once teams started blitzing, it was a huge problem. They're doing a better job up front. They moved Titus Howard back to right tackle after week 1. I think that's been a big help. Ed Ingram has been a revelation at right guard. They've got a combination of guys, a rotation at left guard between Juice Scruggs and Laken Tomlinson, the veteran. But this pass protection has been a lot better. The Denver Broncos are a step up, though. They're second in the NFL in pressure rate, and they bring a lot of 5-man rushes with all those defensive linemen, Nick Bonito, and all those guys that they have. But if the Texans can pass protect, they get to be a lot better team because that was the biggest question about them coming into the season. The last 3 weeks, they've done a really good job of it.
Yeah, and just to emphasize again on the Broncos side of things, how good they have been as a run blocking unit. 74.9 run blocking grade as a team that's 6th best in the NFL this season. They're 12th in impact run blocking percentage, which we've talked about here before on the show. That's when a player gains a positive grade, not just a neutral grade, but a positive grade as a run blocker. They are 12th in total impact run blocking percentage, and then 16th in defeated run blocking percentage, which is the opposite whenever you gain a negative play there. But this team has the ability, as we saw last week with the RJ Harvey touchdown, to put it all together and make it so you have no chance. You just have no chance against this offensive line. So as long as that's rolling, as long as they stay balanced, I feel good about where the Broncos are. I think this is going to be a game of the week type of game. And so for my prediction here, for the first time this season, I said Texans 24, Broncos 21, but in overtime. I'm predicting overtime here. We're going to overtime at 21-21, and then the Texans are going to win 24-21.
That's only funny because Max and I on the college preview yesterday were talking about certain teams, and we were like, should we start calling out overtime? Because I think it was Virginia who's been playing overtime games every single week. I'm like, well, should we start calling this out? And then, of course, you come on here and do it. That's kind of funny. But I've got the Texans also 21-20. There's something feel fishy about them being favored in this game. Does that feel a little weird? Just something about it feels, and I wonder too. The big thing that's going to get talked about is the Pat Surtain injury, and he's going to be out for this week. And I think normally with Surtain in there, and I know that the Texans have some other threats, all of them that went to Iowa State, emerging lately as legitimate weapons. But you feel like this would have been a spot where we would have seen Pat Surtain shadowed on Nico Collins, right? And you get that primetime matchup. But I would expect to see more Jahdae Barron, who's been kind of only working in dime situations, right? You've got Jaquan McMillan, you've got Riley Moss out there, but I think that could be a big loss. And the matchup man-to-man at times with Nico Collins on some of these other guys with Patrick Surtain out, that can make a big difference. I've got the Texans 21-20. I'm with you. It's going to be very close.
Yeah, this line actually opened with the Broncos being favored on the road by 1.5, and now it is the Texans who are favored by 1.5. Now, we're recording this show on a Wednesday, so the lines can obviously change as they have throughout the beginning part of this week, but they think this is a pretty even game, and Vegas is even given a little bit of the advantage to the Houston Texans. So us both saying that they are going to win this game shouldn't be as much of a surprise to people, especially with some of those numbers that you mentioned with the Texans offensive line handling the blitz a little bit better. The Chicago Bears are traveling to Cincinnati to take on the Cincinnati Bengals here. Both of these teams coming off of a loss. You want to talk about the Bengals or you want to talk about the Bears?
Look, I think an underrated story with the Bengals offense the last couple of weeks, and this might be even more important now this week with the question mark on whether or not Joe Flacco is going to play with an AC joint sprain in his shoulder. Could it be him or could it be Jake Browning? But either way, the last 2 weeks with the Bengals scoring 30+, a lot of it's come from the run game. Chase Brown, Samaje Perine have been really good. Even Joe Flacco with a couple of important runs, one in each of these last 2 games. I saw it last week on a scramble. But look at the Bengals, 92 rushing grade and 7 yards per carry. That's elite stuff. 21 missed tackles forced, 13 explosive runs. Chase Brown and Samaje Perine have been a big reason for their offensive success the last 2 weeks, despite obviously the loss last week to the Jets. That was more on their defense, but I think they're going to need to run the football well again against this Bears defense, especially if Jake Browning now is going to be the quarterback again with Flacco hurt. We'll see if Flacco ends up playing. There seems to be a lot of question marks around that, but if Chase Brown and Perine keep the rhythm going on the ground and the offensive line at least keeps blocking at a respectable level, then the Bengals with a little more balance can be a lot more dangerous.
Yeah, as somebody who is an owner of Chase Brown on multiple fantasy teams, I certainly noticed that they've been running the ball a little bit better over the last couple of weeks, but it is sort of an underrated part of what the Bengals have been doing over their last 2 games. And so if that gets to continue, like you said, it brings a lot of balance to this offense and you feel a little bit better about it. To be honest with you, man, I think that this game kind of just comes down to Caleb Williams, and I know that that's a very obvious one, but I'll get into something that's a little bit more within the details. But, you know, we saw from Caleb last week, Caleb has the ability to hit the big-time throws, but he also just has some really frustrating misses. He is, it feels like, in the Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray type of tier and conversation where these guys can give you just brilliance and some throws that you go, man, that is a franchise caliber quarterback type of a throw. And then they'll just have these misses that'll have you pulling your hair out. And so we highlighted on the Monday show how Caleb's lack of fundamentals, marrying up his lower body mechanics to his upper body mechanics when it comes to his throwing motion, have been a reason why he has just been inaccurate at times. And if he's able to be a little bit more cohesive and just, I think, more of a smooth and thorough process when it comes to releasing the football and, like I said, marrying up those lower body and upper body mechanics, I feel like he will have the opportunity to complete some pretty big throws in this game, and the Bears can come in and get a victory. And a matchup that I'm looking for specifically, though, outside of the obvious, Caleb has to play well, I think, for them to win this game on the road, this might be the Colston Loveland breakout game. So when you look at the last 3 games that Colston Loveland has played, I know it's been a slow start for him through this season, especially when compared to a guy like Tyler Warren, who has a good case to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Colston Loveland has at least 4 targets and 3 catches in each of the last 3 games. When you look at the Bengals linebackers right now, they're playing the young guys. They're playing Demetrius Knight. They're playing Barrett Carter. 34.9 coverage grade this season from the Bengals linebackers, not just those 2 guys, but everybody. And so that middle of the field and where those linebackers are picking up not just running backs, but also specifically in this instance, tight ends, I think that we could have a pretty big Colston Loveland day, or at least the best yet that we have seen from him. So that's sort of something I'm going to have my eyes on, even from a player prop perspective as well. I think this could be a nice Colston Loveland type of a game. I'm going to say that the Bears come into Cincinnati and win this game. I'm going to say 27-21 is the final score here, and I'm going to say Chicago gets it done and bounces back.
I originally had the Bengals written down to win, and then this Flacco news came out, and I changed it. I have 24-20 Bears. Right now, look, he's not practicing today. It's really a true 50-50 situation if he's going to play on Sunday. And the other thing about those linebackers, too, for the Bengals is that you're dealing with Ben Johnson and these outside zone run schemes. It was something you mentioned in the previous review show about how they struggled against the Jets in that same system, right? It was Tanner Engstrand coming in from under Ben Johnson. Now it's Ben Johnson himself. And last week, the Bears got away from the run game a little bit. It wasn't great last week against Baltimore. It was great the previous 2 weeks against Washington and New Orleans. I think they get back to that a little bit and try to control the pace of this game for Caleb Williams. DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai could have big days against this Bengals front 7. I'm going to take the Bears to win 24-20.
All right. Okay, so before we get to Packers Panthers, which is the next game I want to talk about here. As parents, you do everything that you can to help your kids be successful, set up a successful future, academics, team sports, college admissions, like whatever that looks like. But what about getting started financially before they make it out there on their own? Fabric makes it easy for you to set up an investment account for your child that grows with them and helps prepare them for a great financial future. Fabric by Gerber Life was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. With a kid's investment account from Fabric, you can start investing in your child's future today. The funds can be used for anything. I mentioned a couple of them there. You know, when they're a little bit younger, maybe you're helping them with tuition, books, summer camps, sporting events, after-school activities. And then if you're holding on to it a little bit longer, maybe when they're young adults, you're helping them buy their first car, buy the first house, start a business, whatever that looks like. The whole thing is online, and setting up an account could take you as little as just 5 minutes. Get started investing with as little as $1 a day, and then manage your child's account and monitor those investments right from your phone. There's no contribution limits to it. It's got multiple tax advantages. Funds are SIPC insured up to $500,000. There's no commission fees to it, just a low flat monthly maintenance fee. You can join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Start investing in your child today at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That's meetfabric.com/PFFNFL, MEET, fabric.com/PFFNFL. These portfolios are managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors Incorporated. Additional services provided by Apex Clean Corporation. All investing is subject to risk. You guys can learn more at meetfabric.com. Panthers traveling to Green Bay to take on the Green Bay Packers here. Panthers coming off a loss. Packers coming off of a win. You want to start talking about the Packers, or do you want to talk about the Panthers here in this one?
I'm going to go with this Panthers defense, and I kind of want to piggyback of something I was talking about on the Sunday review show with the Bills running all over Carolina, and the idea that what they did was stay away from Derek Brown in the run game as much as possible. He's obviously the Panthers' best defensive player. He's an elite run stopper, no matter who you're looking at defensive tackle in this league, and he really is the engine that makes this thing go, right? It was really, for all the acquisitions they made in the offseason, the return of Derek Brown was the most important part. Now, I wanted to kind of get a bigger scope on that and look throughout this whole season of, okay, what does it look like when these teams run towards Derek Brown and away? So I was messing around with his positioning and adding that in with different points of attack, what gap teams are running through on the other side. And when I put it together, what you get is when teams run to the same side that Derek Brown is lined up on, whichever side of the ball, left or right, that Derek Brown is lined up on, when teams run to that side, they get 3.4 yards per carry. Basically, a brick wall there when you talk about big number 95 and setting the tone for everybody else. When they run away from Derek Brown, and the Bills' numbers obviously are going to skew this a little bit because they had such a big day, 5.5 yards per carry. That's really the goal, no matter who your offensive line is, no matter who your backs are, and I still think it is very important for as good a game as Jordan Love just had against Pittsburgh. You got to keep Josh Jacobs involved in this offense and have balance, and then I think the play-action game could really work against this Carolina defense, but that's what I'm trying to do, is find the tendencies of where Derek Brown lines up and then run to the opposite side of him, because he's going to blow up the whole thing no matter who is blocking him. That's such a stark difference to me that I go, okay, this is the guy that makes the run defense go. We have to cut the field in half, or we have to check to certain plays even at the line of scrimmage to make sure, hey, we're running away from number 95 because he can wreck our entire run game single-handedly.
Sometimes a game of football is very simple, right? Run behind your best offensive lineman and run away from the other team's best defensive lineman. We've all been there. If you're playing Madden and you look on the defensive line and either the defensive end or the defensive tackle to the right or left side, they got that little X factor underneath their name. You go, all right, we're going to flip this. We're going to go the opposite way. I'm not going to run right at that guy. That's how it feels like with Derek Brown right now, who is just... He's been fantastic for everything that the Panthers are trying to do on the defensive side of the ball. You look at the good games that the Panthers have had on defense this season, and Derek Brown is often the cornerstone of why they're playing well. So that does make a ton of sense there. I'm going to stick in the trenches for talking about the Panthers. You know, Bryce Young misses last week with an ankle injury. The word right now on Wednesday as we're recording this show is he's day-to-day. There's optimism that he could be playing in this game, but even with Bryce Young coming back in this game, the ankle is not going to be 100%, and he's going to be going up against a Packers defensive line that really knows how to pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. So independent of whether or not he's even out there, I mean, if he's not out there, Andy Dalton did not look good this past week, and it's hard to have more faith in him heading to Green Bay to take on the Packers. So if it's Andy Dalton, I think this is an easy Packers victory. But if it's Bryce Young out there, I still get a little bit worried because it is a mobility type of injury, right? It's not like, something in his arm or his hand. It's something where he is going to have to be mobile and escape pressure, like we know the Packers have the ability to dial up. However, that's not the main point in the trenches that I want to talk about here. Packers, when it comes to run defense, because I believe, again, independent of who's out there at quarterback, the Panthers are best when they are running the football, when they are primarily a rushing football team. The Packers this season, 8th in team run defense grade at a 71.9, 12th in EPA per rush allowed, and then specifically from their defensive line, because remember, it's the offensive line of the Carolina Panthers that has been playing really well, kicking some ass, opening up those running lanes for either Rico Dowdle or Chuba Hubbard. It's been more of Rico Dowdle lately, but the Packers defensive line specifically, 7th in overall run defense grade just from that unit, just from those guys on the first level on the line of scrimmage. So it's going to be a battle there up front, and I think that it's going to be even. I think the Panthers are going to win theirs. I think the Packers are going to win theirs, but ultimately, even if the Panthers end up winning that battle a little bit more, they've got to get more from Chuba Hubbard, and I think that they can. He is a talented back, but last week against the Bills, 12 carries, 34 rushing yards, and I understand that the game script got away from them. There's no doubt about that, but still, Chuba got 12 carries, and he still only got 34 yards. They need more out of this duo, and there's been a lot of, how do I say, what's the right word for this? I don't want to say like pressure, but there's been a lot of talk of like, Chuba Hubbard's the guy who signed the long-term contract for the Panthers, and now Rico Dowdle is actually rushing really well. Is there this controversy? Is there this drama? And Hubbard said himself, he's like, I don't see it like that. We're just a running back duo. We're trying to do whatever we can for the Panthers to win the football game. But they've got to figure out what the right balance is there with those two backs, because I believe last week they just alternated. There's one guy on one drive, one guy on the other. And I feel as though balance in the run game it requires a little bit more feel than just saying one on and one off. And so we'll see what the Panthers are like rushing the football. But if they don't have a good rushing day, I think this one could really get away from them. I'm going to say that the Packers win this football game, specifically with Bryce Young having that lower body injury and mobility being an issue here. I'll say Packers 27, Panthers 14 or 17, something like that. Probably somewhere around a 10-point victory for them.
Yeah, the Panthers are going to have to slow this game down and run the ball well, and they're going to have to get those offensive linemen and those tight ends up on the really good set of second-level defenders the Packers have. Edgerrin Cooper, Quay Walker, Evan Williams, and Xavier McKinney at safety. You've got to get up on these second-level defenders if you're going to make explosive runs happen. I like the Packers in this game. I just think this is a bad matchup for the Panthers defense. I've got it 34-16. Green Bay, I think they can really control things, especially at that linebacker level with their run game first and foremost with Josh Jacobs, again, getting away from Derek Brown as much as possible. And then the play action game and the way Jordan Love is throwing the ball down the middle of the field right now in that intermediate range is just outstanding. That's really the two bits of kryptonite there for the Panthers defense. I think the Packers have a really good matchup there, and they're going to cruise to a win.
The 49ers are traveling to New York, cross-country here to take on the New York Giants. Thoughts on the Giants' offense? No Cam Scatterbo in there anymore for them.
Yeah, I mean, the run game, look, that's really what has spurred the Giants to success lately, right? Jackson Dart starting, Cam Scatterbo being the featured back. Now Scatterbo is out, so it's back to a lot more of Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary, and they're still going to have to be great in the run game because you don't have Malik Neighbors on the outside either, and they weren't winning with the passing game anyway. But you look at this 49ers run defense, they've been a really tough unit to get through, and they're much improved from last year. The defensive line is still very, very young. Michael Williams, Alfred Collins, guys like that. But to me, the story of this 49ers defense, their run defense, is their ability for second-level defenders to rally to the football and prevent explosive runs from happening. If you take their linebackers and their defensive backs, that unit is second in the NFL in run defense grade. They rally to the football. They're fast. They make tackles. They disallow yards after contact, as you see on that top line there. And what that does is disallow explosive runs. And then eventually they're creating tackles for loss and tackles for no gain at the line of scrimmage as well. So I think, look, their defensive line, it's a work in progress. I do think the first-round pick, Michael Williams, looks comfortable in run defense. And we expected that with him being such a great run defender out of Georgia. But I think it's the fact that all these young guys, when you look at an Upton Stout, a Marcus Siegel, a Tatum Bethune filling in for Fred Warner, he's been really good so far in run defense. That hasn't been a big issue yet. Up on the defensive line, little shakier, but when you have such a fast and aggressive group of guys behind you who are getting the job done at this level, you don't get beat for those big explosive runs. You keep your defense out there in good situations. Maybe it is 3rd and 4, and then you just see where you make a play. But the Niners, it's not always pretty, but those athletes on the back end right now, those young kids are getting it done in the run game.
I don't really know what to think of this game, and I know that that's not really great as a tune in for analysis type of show, but like this game is, you just don't know what version of these teams are going to show up, specifically with what kind of cornerstone of the offensive identity that Cam Skattebo was for the New York Giants. I mean, I know that Jackson Dart has done a great job transforming what they're able to do from a dual threat perspective from the quarterback position, but you look at Tyrone Tracy. I went back and I watched a lot of Tyrone Tracy's carries from this year earlier this morning as I was prepping for this show. He is just not nearly as decisive of a back with his ball carrier vision and his confidence like Skattebo was. And I sort of tried to find, okay, well, is he a little bit more comfortable with outside zone stuff and mid-zone stuff, or does he like going between the tackles? And I think he likes being in space a little bit more as an outside zone and mid-zone runner, which the Giants still do plenty of. I know a lot of people, when they think of Cam Skattebo and Jackson Dart running QB power, like, oh, that means it's just between the tackle stuff. They did plenty of stuff to the outside as well. They were really able to rotate that into their run game. So those plays still existed, and I think he's a little bit more comfortable there, but even that, I felt like there was a little bit of hesitancy. So, truth be told, without Malik Neighbors, without Cam Skattebo, I don't know what this offense is going to look like for the New York Giants, and then specifically for the 49ers. I think the Niners offense is going to look better by default this week, but you look at what they were able to do last week, and I understand they didn't have the ball very often last week. Their time of possession was way down, but they were 3 for 9 on 3rd downs last week. 7 of their 9 total drives, Dalton, were 4 plays or less. They just, 2nd down specifically, they really struggled. 48.7 passing grade on 2nd down. And there were a handful of 2nd downs that were, 2nd and 8, 2nd and 10, 2nd and 14, like whatever it was for them, where they were facing a longer 2nd down situation, and the passing game just was not good enough for them. So through all the injuries that the 49ers have as well, I just don't know what version of this team I'm getting every single week. Not having Ricky Pearsall, not having Brock Purdy. Some of those receivers have been in and out with their own injuries, and George Kittle getting back last week, but he wasn't a big part of the offense outside of a couple of throws like that touchdown throw. There really wasn't much that they were just doing to get him the football. And then even the week before, he had it was the week before that was his first week back, and he had 2 targets, but I don't think he had any catches either. So the offense just, to me, lacks an identity right now, and this game is a complete toss-up in my opinion. I'm going to go with the 49ers because I just have a little bit more faith in Kyle Shanahan to bounce back and find that identity this week. I'll go with them 21-17. They're almost those 3-point favorites. They're a 2.5-point favorite there on the road, but what do you think about this game?
I'm going to take San Francisco 24-17. I think Kyle Shanahan can find a way to work through this one. We'll see which quarterback is playing as well. Not sure yet if it's going to be Brock Purdy coming back or if it's going to be Mac Jones, but either way, they'll need to get rid of the football quickly against this really talented Giants defensive line. But I actually do like the idea, even though Kittle hasn't been as involved in the passing game as usual, the fact that he and Kyle Juszczyk and Luke Farrell and those guys are blocking so well up front. I think you also have to look at that Texans game too. They had no pass rush, and that Texans defense they have the lowest scoring defense. They have the best scoring defense, I should say, in the NFL, giving up less than 15 points per game. I think they just kind of got dominated in the trenches on both sides in that game. Could that happen against the Giants? Sure, but I don't love the loss of Skattebo because he was really the guy keeping them on schedule on offense. We'll see what the pass protection looks like for the Giants against the Niners pass rush. And interestingly enough, they traded for Keon White from New England. He's another one in that edge defender rotation now. But I like the Niners. I think this is a game where Kyle Shanahan just finds a way to get it done on the road here.
Chargers and the Titans. The Los Angeles Chargers are traveling to Tennessee to take on the Titans, who get a home game here. You want to talk about the Titans, or you want to talk about the Chargers side of things?
Well, especially in a matchup like this where you've got a very vulnerable Titans offensive line, the Chargers are sure glad to have Khalil Mack back. He's been back for 2 games now from
Anybody
injury.
would be.
I mean, when you talk about an ageless guy, I mean, just ridiculous how good he still is, and the impact that a guy like that has on the rest of the front seven. I talk about this all the time with some of those great players, the Micah Parsons and Myles Garretts and guys like that draw attention away from everybody else. When you look at the Chargers as a team this season, when Khalil Mack is on the field, they have a 72.1 pass rush grade and getting nearly a 48% pressure rate. Without him on the field, whether that's due to injury or just out of the rotation in a given game, only 59.7 and a 31.6% pressure rate. The difference in Khalil Mack just being out there still as their best pass rusher and the impact that has on getting Tuli Tuipulotu one-on-one matchups, the interior pass rushers one-on-one matchups, Tahir Tart and those guys. It's so big to have Khalil Mack back healthy. And in this game where they could have a dominant performance against a struggling Titans offensive line, it's really important for him to be in there and avoid an upset in this game.
On the Chargers offensive side of things, we know how great Justin Herbert has been playing. We broke that down in depth on Monday's show. Specifically, I think something that has really just taken their offense to the next level is Oronde Gadsden emerging as that receiving tight end there for him. And I think that he's ripe to have another pretty big game here in this one. When you look at the Titans covering tight ends this season, they are 17th in team coverage grade, and they're 20th in passing yards or receiving yards, however you want to look at it, allowed to the tight end position. So Gadsden has, I don't want to say that he has looked uncoverable, because I think that that's not exactly the right conclusion to come to when you watch how he is playing, and he's playing well. He's in a situation where it's not like he's creating a ton of separation on all of these routes and on all of his catches. A couple of his catches, they're really well-designed plays. He's finding the soft spots in the zone, or he's just getting open and it's a blown coverage and Justin Herbert's been able to find him. But there have been other plays where he's covered pretty tightly and he's still able to come down with it as a really good contested catcher, like what he was when he was at Syracuse. So this is another week where if you're expecting the Gadsden hype train to slow down, I don't think it's going to happen this week. And we've seen over the last couple of games here for the Chargers, when he is clicking on all cylinders, it really just takes this offense to another level, having another reliable player for Justin Herbert to attack with in the passing game. And so as Omarion Hampton's been hurt, they haven't been able to lean on him in the run game. They've gotten some good things from Kamani Vidal, but when the run game isn't there for them, Justin Herbert picks you up with his arm, and certainly having a multitude and a diversity of pass catchers to be able to go to has been great. I don't think that changes this week. I think the Chargers win big, and that honestly might be less of a Chargers thing and more of a Titans thing. I don't really know what the Tennessee Titans do right now to give you faith in them winning a football game. The Chargers are favored by 8.5 here on the road. I think they win bigger than this. I think the Chargers win 28-14.
Yeah, no, this is a tough one, especially when you talk about Gadsden. So many threats in the slot when you talk about Gadsden and Ladd McConkey and Keenan Allen, right? All those guys can operate on the inside. The Titans just traded their starting nickel, Roger McCreary, to the other side of L.A. and the Rams. So I really have no idea who's going to be the nickel and defending in the slot. Is it going to be just an extra safety like a Kevin Winston Jr.? Do they have somebody else? They also traded Jarvis Brownlee to the Jets a few weeks ago, so they're really tearing apart this secondary. Gadsden or McConkey or Allen, they're pretty good bets. One of them is a good bet, regardless of which one it is, to have a good day, because we have no idea who's playing in the slot for Tennessee either this week. So that's going to be a really good matchup, I think, for the Chargers. I'm with you. I've got the Chargers winning pretty big here. I've got it 26-13 to just to kind of throw an oddball score out there. But, Justin Herbert's been playing MVP caliber football, carrying this team through their offensive line issues. Joe Alt getting healthier each week is going to help. And I just think there's too many bad matchups all across the board for this Titans team to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about some moves that this regime has made that absolutely signal that they do not like what anybody did. Mike Borgonzi, the general manager of the Titans, very clearly basically hates everything that Rand Carthen and John Robinson did. I mean, this was not a team that could just be trading corners And they have traded now 2 of them in Roger McCreary and Jarvis Brownlee Jr. I mean, L'Jarius Sneed has been a bad signing for them. He's been hurt, and he has not played well. They don't have any coverage players right now, and they're trading them at the deadline. So very clearly, this team is just, and they fired their head coach, so this is a duh. But Mike Borgonzi, the general manager, I think is just looking at this entire roster and saying, we maybe have 10 players, 10 total that I'm cool with. Everybody else is going to be out of here within 2 years. Everybody. That's how it feels, and that's how it feels like the Titans are operating. And so to take them in the middle of the season here to get a win or even to cover, and doesn't feel smart to
me. The injuries, too. You look at, here's the list of guys not practicing today for Tennessee. Calvin Ridley, Jeffrey Simmons, Arden Key, Xavier Woods, Dan Moore Jr., Darrell Baker, Blake Hance. I mean, there's some key guys on this team that are out for this game. It's going to be tough to see them keeping up as long as the Chargers don't make a lot of mistakes.
This is going to be a fun one here. Your Indianapolis Colts, the team that really has your heart. I know you. They're traveling to Pittsburgh to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think it was since week 4. Aaron Rodgers has like an 82.9 PFF passing grade. Like he's been playing really, really well. It was tough to start the year. The average of the target was low. He wasn't really being asked to do a lot. There weren't a lot of difficult throws. He was sometimes putting it into harm's way. But man, really since week 4, he's been playing well. And Shane Steichen even said earlier this week, he's like, November and December are where our season really begins. Like, yeah, okay, their record is fantastic so far, but even Shane Steichen is like, this is where the teeth of the schedule actually starts to show up here. So who do you want to talk about in this one? Do you want to talk about the Steelers or do you want to talk about the Colts?
Let's go with this Colts run game. And so much of the talk is centered around Jonathan Taylor and MVP talk. And Trevor, I'm going to have more in a film breakdown on this that's coming tomorrow. I broke down some elements of this Colts run game that's working because it's so productive. They're so talented and it's incredibly diverse. I mentioned before about the Denver Broncos being one of 4 teams that doesn't run any single run concept at least 20% of the time. The Colts are another one of those 4 teams, and I think it's no coincidence. It's the Broncos, Colts, Chargers, and Cardinals. 3 of those 4 teams are squarely in playoff position, so you have that level of diversity in your run game. That helps you a lot, but then you look at just the production that Quentin Nelson and this offensive line is giving them right now. 2nd in the league in run blocking grade. 10th in impact run block percentage, which is the percentage of plays you get a positive grade as a run blocking unit. 2nd best defeated run block percentage, which is the percentage of negatively graded plays you have as run blockers, so they're not screwing anything up either. And then I think my favorite thing here in talking about the diversity of this run game, they're 2nd in zone run blocking grade as a team. They're 4th in gap scheme run blocking grade as a team. They can hit you with inside zone, outside zone. They can pull Quentin Nelson wherever they want. Trev, I'm telling you, if you haven't sat down and watched the tape this year of Tanner Bortolini, their center, man, oh man, he might be the most underrated player in football right now. He has become an outstanding football player. The tackles, all 5 guys across this offensive line are just awesome. And you've got a primetime matchup both in the run game and in the passing game with TJ Watt and this defensive line. But in the run game, the Steelers have really struggled up front all year. And if the Colts get in their rhythm with Jonathan Taylor first and foremost, and they don't ask Daniel Jones to win battles on 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10 against this pass rush, you have to really like that the Colts could go in here against what is supposed to be a really good defense with a bunch of big names on it. What's supposed to be a great defense, but the Colts are the most efficient offense in football. It starts with the run game, and then it works to Daniel Jones and Tyler Warren, Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, all those guys on the outside.
Yeah, that really is, I think, the matchup to look for, because if the Colts are able to run the ball the way that they want to, I think they'll be able to control this game enough and they'll be able to get out of Pittsburgh with a victory. But if they can't, if they're not as dominant on the ground as they have been throughout the first half of this season, that then opens the door in a big way, in my opinion, because where you boast about the Colts run blocking, and deservingly so, because you mentioned they're ass kickers and they're playing very, very well, the Colts have just a 62.8 team pass blocking grade if you take out their 2 games against the Tennessee Titans, which the Titans are so bad this season, I almost feel the need that I have to do that, especially for a team that has played the Tennessee Titans twice. So if you take those 2 Titans games out, they have just a 62.8 team pass blocking grade, and their pressure percentage, the amount of pressures that they have allowed, is just 15th. So where this is a very dominant offensive line in the run game, they're sort of just middle of the pack in the NFL, and that's against a pretty soft schedule that they have faced so far when it comes to their pass protection. The Steelers, they are top 5, if not top 10 in PFF team passing grade, in pressure percentage, in total sacks. They don't have the total pressures to be top 10, but they're close to that mark. This is one of the best defensive lines and one of the best pressure producing units in the NFL. And so if the Colts don't have that advantage on the ground like they have had for most of their matchups this year, that's when I think things get really interesting. And I actually kind of believe that that could be the case here. What I think is an X factor for the Steelers offense is Roman Wilson. When you look at Roman Wilson since week 4, they've gotten him more involved in the offense, 71.7 receiving grade, but they're still not involving him a ton. He has just 7 catches on 8 targets for 103 yards, 1 touchdown, and 5 first downs during that time. I think they need to ramp him up in this offense more. They've got to be able to have somebody at the receiver position, not named DK Metcalf, make a difference for them. They've got tight ends that they can get involved. They've got running backs they can get involved, but Roman Wilson has to be more of a player in this offense, in my opinion. He has to gain the faith and the trust of Aaron Rodgers more, and I think this could be a big game towards doing that. I think this game is really close, but ultimately, for what the Colts have been through the first 8 weeks of this season, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt here. I'm going to say Colts 21, Steelers 20, a true coward's prediction here. Dalton, what do you got?
I have the Colts also 27-24, and I think the big thing is that the run game travels, right? If Jonathan Taylor has another big day and Daniel Jones is able to get rid of the football quickly, which he generally has been doing this year, I think the Colts' offensive advantages really play into their strengths as a two-dimensional team, right? Whereas I think the Steelers, I'm still worried about their ability to run the football. I'm a little worried about these offensive tackles against Leatu Latu, who's been running hot lately, and even on the inside, you've got DeForest Buckner, who's still one of the best D tackles in the league. If Rodgers can get rid of the football quickly and vertically like he's been doing lately, it could be a big day for DK Metcalf, but I trust the Colts to be two-dimensional just a little bit more than Pittsburgh. I like Jonathan Taylor. I think that's where the base of this win comes from, as it's been coming so many weeks, along with Daniel Jones being so efficient. Colts 27, Steelers 24.
New Orleans Saints traveling to Los Angeles to take on the Rams this week. By the way, just as a fun one before I throw this one to you, we've talked about some, you talked about Khalil Mack specifically as being ageless and just how great he is producing in the twilight of his career. Demario Davis, the inside linebacker for the New Orleans Saints, he has played the most individual run defense snaps of any player in the NFL this year at 236. Dalton, he still has an elite 90.6 PFF grade when defending the run. Just a random shout out as I was doing my research here for Demario Davis. He's not in my analysis here of what I'm going to talk about here for this game, but I wanted to give him a shout out. He has just been phenomenal this season. He feels like he really is only getting better with age. So shout out to Demario Davis. Do you want to talk about the Saints or do you want to talk about the Rams here?
I'll go with the Rams offense. And look, Davis also is going to be a big factor against a Rams team that is leading the league in run blocking grade. So he's really going to have to be on it again this week, stopping Kyron Williams and those guys. But I think I want to talk about the return of Puka Nacua and why this is so important to the Rams offense, other than the fact that he's just really darn good at everything. It's the fact that he's the main guy that the Rams attack zone coverage with, which you're going to get a lot of against this Brandon Staley-led defense for the Saints. They like to play too high. They like to keep things in front of them. A lot of cover 2, cover 6, really sitting back and making tackles in front, not giving up those explosives. Puka Nacua, 91.8 receiving grade against zone coverage this year. Best in the NFL. 18 first downs is 4th. Second most efficient as far as yards per route run in the NFL among wide receivers. This is the idea that man-to-man, you could go to Nacua or Devontae Adams, or you could really, Sean McVay could scheme up some things behind the line of scrimmage with all the motions he runs. But the idea for the Rams against zone coverage is to let Puka Nacua move around the formation and pick apart the holes in zone coverages. To have him back this week, if he's coming back, and it sounds like they're expecting him to, the idea for him to pick and prod away at this Saints zone-heavy defense is going to be a big factor for the Rams offense in this game.
Yeah, obviously Nacua is going to be a factor no matter what. I mean, before he got hurt, he was an offensive player of the year type of clip. So that obviously is going to be a big deal for the Saints specifically. They're starting Tyler Shuck in this game. Tyler Shuck is going to get his first start against the Bucs. He was 17 for 30 when he came in for a Spencer Rattler. 128 passing yards, 1 interception, no touchdowns on the day. He looked fine. I think there were moments when I was watching him, I was like, he looks a little deer in the headlights for me. I don't know if I'd be comfortable with this, but he settled down a little bit and was able to complete some nice throws. But independent of Tyler Shuck, what really worries me about the Saints this week is their lack of run game, especially with Kendre Miller now out for the season with an ACL injury. It's Alvin Kamara, who doesn't look like the Alvin Kamara that he was, 5, 6, 7 years ago, whatever that is. And I don't know if they're going to want to get Devin Neal involved as much as he might need to, but 42.1 rushing grade last week versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, just 48 rushing yards on 15 attempts. If they repeat that against the Rams and you make Tyler Shuck drop back and pass the ball 45, 50 times, I don't know if you're going to like what you're going to see. So a run game is a young quarterback's best friend. And the fact of the matter is the Saints don't have it right now. Eric McCoy out for the season. I mentioned Kendre Miller's not there either. They just don't have a lot that they have faith on in the run game to be able to lean on. And I think that that's going to be a major emphasis of this team when they're going through their team building exercises this upcoming offseason. But I don't think it's going to be enough in this game. I think the Rams win easy, 27-9. That's my final score prediction here.
I'm there as well. I have the Rams 31-10. I think this is a rough first start and a rough opponent and a rough environment for Tyler Shuck to get in this first assignment with this pass rush. And you mentioned only 15 carries for the Saints last week. Only 9 of those were by design. 6 of them were scrambles. So they're not going to have much success if they're only running the ball 9 times a game, especially. And Tyler Shuck has less mobility than Spencer Rattler does. They're hoping he just makes better decisions with the football, but he's going to be under pressure a lot. I don't like this matchup at all for the Saints.
Jags and the Raiders. You want to start talking about the Raiders, or you want to talk about the Jags here for this one?
I'll go with the Raiders offense and Geno Smith. I think this game is very, very
Godspeed.
simple. It's true. It's very simple. We only saw 30 plays of them against Kansas City, and we'll see if it's even less than that this week. But no, I think it's very simple. Geno Smith is tied for the league lead with 10 interceptions, and he's been putting the ball in danger a lot. The Jacksonville Jaguars, through their first 5 games, led the league in coverage grade and led the league with 10 interceptions. Their last 2 games, they have not gotten an interception. That was against Seattle and LA, the Rams, and they have the lowest coverage grade in the league, actually a 35.9 in both of those 2 games. So which Jaguars coverage unit do we get? Is it the one that was ball hawking their first 5 games and looked really good? And which Geno Smith do we get? One that can protect the football or one that's just going to keep taking chances downfield and missing throws? If it's the latter and you get the Geno Smith that's throwing picks and the Jags are getting takeaways, this could be a blowout. Geno has to be able to keep them in this game because the Jags went into their bye week going, hey, we got to get to the football again. This is what was winning us games earlier on, is getting interceptions, especially defending the middle of the field. I think there's just a heavy part of this game that comes down to turnovers, especially on the Raiders side of it.
Speaking of coverage, that's a good segue into sort of what I think is a point of emphasis for the Jags side of things. Dalton, which coverage scheme do you think a Pete Carroll-led Las Vegas Raiders team runs the most?
Oh, I know it's that old Seattle cover 3, probably more than anybody.
It's cover 3 indeed. They're top 3 in the NFL, despite having a bye week, at cover 3 rate in how many snaps that they have run cover 3 this year. When you look at Trevor Lawrence versus cover 3 specifically, 58.1 passing grade. He's got 3 turnover-worthy plays and 1 big-time throw, although I will say 2 of the turnover-worthy plays were sort of like, those are, yes, they were bad decisions, and I think that they were categorized as turnover-worthy plays. But there was really only the one where I go, all right, you really threw it into an area of cover 3 that you should not have on this play. So he's been okay versus cover 3, but specifically, this is what I wanted to point out with Trevor Lawrence. 7 sacks when he's looking at a cover 3 shell, and that was tied for the most of any other coverage scheme that he is looking at. Specifically with the Rams, that's the team that also runs cover 3 at a very high level, very similar to that of the Raiders. When they played the Rams, he saw a ton of cover 3. That's where those 7 sacks came, and he had a much higher time to throw. So when he was seeing cover 3 against the Rams, who run it at a similar rate to what he will see against the Raiders, it was where he had the most hesitancy, he took the most sacks, and he had a higher time to throw. So does that continue this game? Is the Rams defense just a lot more formidable than the Raiders? Or is this a coverage that he really just struggles to diagnose and process at a faster level? That's what I'm really looking at in this game. And I think this will be a little bit more of a, okay, this is a tangible thing we could take away from Trevor Lawrence as a quarterback, maybe more so than just like the game overall. But it's hard for me to have a lot of faith in the Raiders right now. I think this game will be decently close. I'm going to go Jags 23, Raiders 17 is the final score that I'm going with here.
I've got it even closer, Jaguars 20-17. And I think to your point about Trevor Lawrence against, say, cover 3, right? And one thing that gets talked about all the time with these zone coverages are how many guys are back deep. Well, remember that it's also 4 guys that are playing underneath as well. And this Jaguars passing game has been really conservative. I think the word hesitant you used for Lawrence is big time there, because Trevor Lawrence, to me, has struggled with just driving the football downfield with conviction. And so often against a coverage like that, you have to drive it down the seams, right? Or sometimes you end up with a one-on-one on the outside that you just have to take that chance on. I think the vertical passing for Trevor Lawrence has been a struggle, and I think there's times he's been indecisive with it. You have to be willing to layer footballs over the second level of that defense in order to make that happen. So I think he knows, honestly, I think he knows what the coverages are, but it just feels like he's not throwing the ball past that 12 to 15 yard mark with any sort of conviction. You have to attack a defense like this, and especially with the Raiders' lack of talent in the secondary, he should be able to do that with Brian Thomas. I think Liam Cohen needs to use Travis Hunter downfield more often. He's a downfield threat with the ball skills who can go up and get it. We saw it in the Kansas City game. We saw it in the fourth quarter against the Rams when the game was over. Let's see it more often earlier in these games. Let's get Travis Hunter working downfield. Let's get Brian Thomas Jr. some confident throws going downfield, right? I think that's the element that's missing. The Jags have been efficient underneath. The run game has mostly been pretty good. They need to attack over the top to make the defenses respect everything that's going on underneath.
I would agree. I would definitely agree with that. Drake said something in the chat. Drake was saying, so you're saying that it's a big Max Crosby game, Trevor? Could very well be, right? I mean, like you said, if Lawrence doesn't have that confidence and conviction to get rid of the ball decently quickly when he is looking downfield against cover 3, you hold on to that ball a little bit too long and Max Crosby will make you pay. So it could be a big Max Crosby day. We will see. To everybody who's out there in the chat, I got a question for you. What's your favorite touchdown of all time? For us, it's the next one, right? Because with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, every touchdown brings you closer to cashing in. DraftKings Sportsbook delivers the unmatched intensity of the NFL right to your fingertips. From first touchdown score to anytime TD props or the thrill of live in-game betting, every snap is loaded with opportunity. Here's the best part. New customers, you bet $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets instantly. We're using DraftKings for all the odds that you guys see on the screen, the over-unders, the lines, everything like that. We use it over at DraftKings. Your team hitting pay dirt pays out to you. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use the promo code PFF. That's promo code PFF for new customers to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. If you got a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or just text HOPENY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problems with gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino Resort in Kansas. Pass-through of per wager tax may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bet must win to receive bonus bets, which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gambling resources, visit dkng.co/audio. This is a limited time offer. Chiefs and the Bills. Boy, the Chiefs look unstoppable right now, and so it's kind of cool that we get to see them face off against the team that feels like has been their AFC foe in the Buffalo Bills, and this one is in Buffalo. If it was in Arrowhead, I'd be a little bit worried for the Buffalo Bills with it, but this one being in Buffalo, I think that with them starting off the season hot and then them really struggling for a couple of weeks there, bouncing back a little bit last week against the Carolina Panthers, in my opinion, the Bills are going to get the Chiefs' best. The Chiefs are going to get the Bills' best. And I think that's what makes this such a great game to preview and to watch. You want to talk about the Bills side of things or the Chiefs side of things, Dalton?
Look, the Bills' best has mostly involved this year James Cook and Ray Davis and Josh Allen and the tight ends in this run game getting downhill on teams. We know the Bills don't have that one top-flight receiver that they can go to all the time, but they do have one of the best running backs in the league, actually the back leading the league in rushing grade in James Cook, and then a terrific offensive line and tight end group that is third right now in run blocking grade behind the Rams and the Colts, and they are first in the NFL in yards before contact per carry. That is going to be big against a Chiefs unit that, for the most part, when you look at the production, their run defense has been average or so, even in the grading. A lot of the rushing yards per game marks allowed there, they're pretty average as far as in total, but the big split here for the Chiefs run defense, okay, is the grades between their defensive line and then their second-level defenders. Something similar I talked about with the San Francisco 49ers earlier in the show. The Chiefs' defensive line has the second lowest run defense grade in the NFL. So you would think, you hear that and you go, oh man, they must be awful in run defense all the way around, right? The guys are getting to the second level. It's a problem. Well, the one thing saving them, much like the 49ers, is that their back seven, the rest of their defense, linebackers, defensive backs, seventh in the NFL in run defense grade. Those guys are going to be in the spotlight. Nick Bolton, as always, at middle linebacker. Drew Tranquill's been great. I could go all day on how valuable Leo Chenal is to this defense, whether he's at linebacker or lining up off to the edge. Shamari Connor and Jaden Hicks, a couple of big hitters on the back end at safety. Brian Cook has contributed as well. That's what you're going to get at, is it looks like the Bills in the run game have a big advantage on the first level. How well can those second level guys tackle James Cook and Josh Allen, especially in the design run game, and how well can the Bills control the pace of this game and control time of possession with the Chiefs offense running so hot?
Man, I am so excited for this one. And that is absolutely one of the matchups that I'm looking forward to. You know, when we were talking about the Broncos and the Texans, we had Terron on a little bit ago, and he was talking about how Sean Payton would have 2 or 3 plays every single week that he thought were 100%ers when they got in the red zone. That is sure how it feels with the Kansas City Chiefs over the last 3 weeks, because that's really what I'm looking for in this game when it comes to whether or not the Chiefs can go into Buffalo and get a victory here. Over the last 3 games that Kansas City has played, they are top 5 in both red zone percentage, so converting a red zone trip into a touchdown, not just a field goal, at 80%, which is crazy high. Third in, and they are top 5 in third down percentage everywhere at a 48.57%. So they're top 5 in the areas that you really want to be elite at, and that's scoring touchdowns in the red zone and converting on third down. 78.9 offensive grade in the red zone. That is also top 5 there for them. How did the Bills defend that? In the Bills' last 3 games that they have played, so a little bit of a what have you done for me lately type of a thing. 71.7 defensive grade in the red zone. That's 7th in the NFL since that week 5 mark. And so the Bills have been pretty good clamping down in the red zone against teams, but the Chiefs have just been so red hot, especially with getting Rashee Rice back in the mix. I know a lot of people just talk about what Rashee Rice can do as a whole for the Chiefs offense. I said this a couple weeks ago, and I'll continue to say it. Who Rashee Rice is in the red zone for this team is really where you get the value. And I think that is going to be where this game is won and lost. If the Chiefs have anything close to that 80% red zone percentage that they have had over the last 3 games, they are going to win the game. But if the Buffalo Bills can hold them below 50% on their red zone trips, I think Buffalo wins this game. I can't pick against the Chiefs right now. I just can't do it. However, for the sake of my own enjoyment, I'm going to say this is an absolute shootout, and we're going to get the best of both offenses. 35-33. Kansas City wins this game.
I'm with you, too. I think you're going to get a lot of points scored because I think both offenses have their advantages in this game. The Bills on the ground, the Chiefs certainly through the air. We'll see what the Bills linebackers look like. It sounds like they're getting both Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard back in there, but those are guys the Chiefs have attacked before in coverage. And one other name to look out for is the rookie first-round pick, Maxwell Hairston, out there at cornerback. Played 27 snaps in his first NFL game last week, recovering from a knee injury, so maybe he gets even more involved, or Andy Reid decides to attack him when he sees him out there. But the big difference in this game for me is that the Chiefs are the number 1 31 team in coverage grade in the NFL, and the Bills are number 29. I just worry about how in big moments they're going to get stops, and this has been my question for the Bills the whole time. How are you going to get stops against teams like this in big moments? I know Josh Allen sometimes can carry you through it, but that also feels like him and the run game controlling the pace is the one way the Bills win this game. I trust the Chiefs defense more. I think it is going to be high scoring, but the Chiefs know how to get stops in those big moments. 31-27 Kansas City.
Seahawks traveling across the country to Washington to take on the Commanders on Sunday Night Football. Would assume that we're getting Jaden Daniels back in this game since it was kind of up in the air for him to play last week. Ultimately, Marcus Mariota was there at quarterback for them, and I believe that Jaden Daniels is going to play this week. Obviously, we're recording this show on a Wednesday, so things subject to change, but that's sort of the way that I am operating. You want to talk about the Commanders or the Seahawks here, Dalton?
I'll take the Seahawks offense, and I'll tell you what, obviously having Jaden Daniels back would really help, and I don't think Marcus Mariota played that poorly against Kansas City. He's really never played that poorly when he's had to be out there. The Commanders' biggest problem is on defense, and it's in the secondary, and when you're playing this Seattle team, you better have some sort of answer for Jackson Smith-Njigba, because he's leading the league in every category right now, even with a bye week. And I think the increased emphasis on Smith-Njigba being a vertical threat, right? His average depth of target this year is 13 yards, by far his career high. It was 6.4 his rookie year. I believe it was 9.2 last year. You look at the difference of the role of Smith-Njigba in Klit Kubiak's offense. It's like Kubiak went back into the film and went, wait a minute. I have the guy who got 300 yards in the Rose Bowl that time, and he's been used as like a check down guy in this offense the last 2 years. Yeah, we're not doing that. Obviously, a lot of 12 personnel for the Seahawks, so he's lined up on the outside a lot more often, close to 80% of the time there. 13-yard average depth of target, and you saw that 98.2 receiving grade on 10-plus yard targets, best of any player in the NFL right now. So Smith-Njigba, obviously he's gotten better now as the years have gone on, but man, oh man, the use of him in this offense as a vertical threat is a huge problem for Washington and everything that they're trying to fix in the secondary.
Yeah, for Washington, for me, they've just got to be so much better at running the ball, really just through their running backs. We've had Jaden Daniels and Marcus Mariota be able to run the ball pretty well, but when you look at the Commanders, since week 6, 164 total rushing yards from their running backs. That's 24th in the NFL. The Seahawks, since week 5, lowest EPA per rush allowed when it comes to their run defense stats. And so this is one where it's just when you look at when the Commanders truly struggle. They've had injuries, Deebo Samuel and Terry McLaurin. They've been in and out of lineup. Obviously, Jaden Daniels has a little bit as well. But you mentioned Marcus Mariota has not played poorly at all whatsoever. So they've had some guys in and out of the lineup that they've really needed. I totally understand that. But at the end of the day, this team has to be able to run the football. And in the games where they don't get production out of their design run game from their running backs, they just really struggle. They struggle to continue to hold on to the ball, to score points, to do what they need to do to win football games. And they are not going into a very friendly defense when it comes to having a get-back game. And so if they are able to get back, it's going to buck against the trends for both of these teams, I think. Ultimately, when you tie that into the fact that the Commanders as a whole this season have really struggled in coverage, and you mentioned Jackson Smith-Njigba's production, just Sam Darnold in general, what he has been able to do, especially attacking deep down the field, it worries me overall about the Commanders winning this game. Maybe we'll get some Jaden Daniels magic if he ends up starting in this game, but on paper, it's hard for me to not go with Seattle. I'm going to go with Seattle here. 24-17 is my final score.
I'll tell you a guy who's made a big difference with that Seattle run defense in that spot, in that stretch that you mentioned there. The rookie safety, Nick Emmanwori, coming down. Remember before I talked about Kyle Hamilton moving down into this nickel kind of hybrid third linebacker role? That's really how Seattle's used Nick Emmanwori in the 3 games that he's been starting. And with Devin Witherspoon out, who's normally such a great aggressive slot defender, Emmanwori has filled that role well. Right now he's got an 83.9 run defense grade. Granted, that's really just 3 full games, but I think the idea of him on that second level, along with Ernest Jones, who's playing great, and Tyrese Knight, who keeps getting better, Emmanwori is that hybrid guy who can really especially play down near the line of scrimmage. I almost think about him, too, in a role like Shamari Connor for the Kansas City Chiefs, where it's like, hey, man, blow up run plays, play on the weak side of these run plays, blow up screens, bubble screens on the outside, play physical and down near the line of scrimmage, and we'll take care of everything behind you. He's made a big difference in that run defense as well. He should be shouted out, the rookie from South Carolina. But I'm with you. I like Seattle in this game. I've got it 27-21. I think we get a good amount of points in this game, but I think Seattle's run defense is a big factor, and I don't know what Washington's answer could possibly be for Jackson Smith and Jigba, especially the way Sam Darnold's throwing the football right now.
Yeah, unless Mike Chambers still just has the best game of his season, no question about it. And maybe even Marshawn Lattimore too, right? Maybe it's gonna take everybody to be able to defend Jackson Smith and Jigba that way, unless we are getting the best coverage performance that we have seen from the Commanders. It's hard to think that Seattle won't win this game, but we'll see. We'll see what happens this weekend. It'll be a fun one to watch. Cardinals and Cowboys, that's the Monday Night Football game that we have. This one's in Dallas. We should get Kyler Murray back from this game, although Jacoby Brissett has played well in his stead. What do you think about this one? You want to talk about the Cardinals or the Cowboys?
I think it's the obvious, man. We're going to talk about this Cowboys defense. And look, quarterbacks have just taken their liberties, taken shots downfield on this team. Last in the NFL in coverage grade, honestly. I mean, that's obvious, right? Last in the NFL in coverage grade against 10-plus yard throws. Now, this is an interesting part between Kyler Murray and the two starts that we've seen from Jacoby Brissett, is that Brissett has actually been much better and much more confident throwing the ball downfield. 87.7 passing grade on 10-plus yard throws. That's a top 10 mark in the NFL. Kyler Murray, that's just 74.3, which is pretty low when you consider those 10-plus yard throws are going to be your more highly graded throws down the field, your big-time throws, right? And I just think it's been inconsistent for the Cardinals working the ball vertically down the field. They should be able to do that against the Cowboys, whether that's Trey McBride or Michael Wilson or Marvin Harrison Jr., whoever that may be, but they still have to go out there and execute. And I think that's a big question. If Kyler Murray is playing in this game against the worst secondary in football, can you push it downfield accurately and confidently? If you can do that, we're probably going to see another two-way shootout in another Cowboys game, but Murray's got to get out there and execute. Obviously, he's got to be healthy as well, but Brissett's done a nice job throwing it downfield, and I think shown Murray what he needs to do. He's got to go out there and do it.
Yeah, and on the Cowboys side of things, running the football is paramount for this team, right? I think that we have seen that. When you look at their two losses recently for the Cowboys, Javonte Williams, 13 carries and 29 yards versus the Carolina Panthers, and then 13 carries for only 41 yards against the Denver Broncos. I mean, when you look at the games around that, the games where the Cowboys have scored a ton of points and won, Javonte Williams is able to go off and they're able to stay balanced, and I think that that's really, really important. 42.8 and 80 and 48.2 rushing grades in those two games. Every other game that they have played, they have had a rushing grade above 68. So those are the two outliers, and those are the games in which they really got whooped. They really got whooped when it comes to wanting to run the football and them just not being able to do it. So specifically, I wanted to look this up because I went back and I watched some of the tape of all the carries from Javonte Williams over those two games they really struggled. And the thing that stood out to me is that the Panthers and the Broncos were very willing to put 5 or 6 defensive linemen on the line of scrimmage. And defensive linemen, not just guys with their hands in the dirt. I'm talking like outside linebackers right on the line of scrimmage as well. Those count too. So 5 or more, normally it's just 5, but I'll just say 5 or more, 5 or 6 defensive linemen on the line of scrimmage. Those two games against Carolina and Denver, they saw the most, and then the third most reps where there were 5 defensive linemen on the line of scrimmage. The Cardinals, 5th most reps of any team this season, having 5 or more defensive linemen on the line of scrimmage. So this is a script, and this is a team that is very willing to do what was the Cowboys' kryptonite, or what has been the Cowboys' kryptonite when it comes to getting their run game involved and letting their offense be potent and balanced at the same time. Ultimately, I do think that leads to this being a pretty close game. With the Cowboys secondary struggling the way that it is, I think they'll have more shots deep down the field. I went with Cardinals 27, Cowboys 23. I've got Arizona winning this one.
Got the Cowboys getting outscored at home. All right, I respect
I
it.
do.
Look, I think you're right about those 5 defensive line looks, and you talk about another ageless guy. Calais Campbell is still just unbelievable on the inside. I think if you get some reps of him against the rookie right guard Tyler Booker, that's going to be a lot of fun because Booker's looked really good in the run game when he's been healthy. I like the Cowboys offense in this game. I've got the Cowboys 34-24. To be honest with you, I think 2.5 as a 2.5 point favorite. I think that's a little low for me. I think the Cowboys have proven they can score. This Cardinals defense is sound, but they don't make a lot of splash plays, and I think that is going to be a big problem against this Cowboys offense with George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb, the way they're rolling. They still went into Denver and scored 24 points, and their defense just couldn't get any stops at all. I'm confident in Dak Prescott in this offense. They might have to work backwards on early downs a little bit, letting them throw a little bit and then get to the run game in short yardage situations, but I like the options they have, and I don't know how much I can trust Kyler Murray yet, and it's not so much about beating the Cowboys defense, it's just can he go out there and execute consistently drive to drive and play to play. I have more confidence in the Cowboys offense. I'll take Dallas.
I think Kyler can against this secondary specifically. I don't know about against most secondaries in the NFL, but I feel good about it here. 54.5 is the over-under in this game. So Vegas thinks it's going to be a fireworks show. It'll be a lot of fun if it is for everybody who's watching on Monday Night Football. There we go. All of the games previewed for Week 9 in the NFL. Appreciate everybody watching the show. If you guys want to see any of these numbers for yourself and you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, PFF NFL Show 25. That's how you can get 25% off that annual PFF sub. So if you want to see any more of sort of the numbers that we've been talking about or do your own research, which we would absolutely encourage all of you guys to do. There's so many data points, so many things about every single matchup that we can't possibly get into one show. Go check it out for yourself. PFF NFL Show 25. That's the best way to do that. Dalton, you said that you're going to have a film breakdown coming up later this week on this channel. Then, of course, we're going to have the weekend that is, watching college football, watching NFL football, and then we are going to be back with you on Monday at 1 p.m., as we always are, to review all the games and give you a top 5 grades for every single team. For Dalton Wasserman, for everybody behind the glass producing the show, I'm Trevor Sikkema saying thank you guys so much for watching this episode of the PFF NFL Show. We'll see you guys next week.